Hey, this is Dr. Priyanka Venugopal, and you're listening to the Unstoppable Mom Brain Podcast, Style, Image, and Identity with Master Coach Judith Gaton. I am thrilled to bring you today's fun and fabulous podcast conversation with my good friend and fellow colleague, Master Coach Judith Gaton. Judith is a lawyer turned image and personal style coach for high-achieving women who helps them develop and express their personal style so that they can show up as the powerful women that they are. We talked about body image and how to create and find your sense of style, even if you're not at the weight that you yet want to be. I may have even gotten a little emotional during the conversation because it really brought me back to a time just a few years ago when I was at my personal heaviest and how I used to think about my body and how I dressed myself. I thought for so many years that I had to lose the weight that I wanted to lose before I could treat myself and dress myself. Well, I didn't have any tissues on hand during the podcast episode, so I managed to keep it together, and we had such a great conversation that I cannot wait for you to enjoy. Before we get into today's episode, I want to make sure that you know about a brand new on-demand training that I have created just for you, the high achiever who wants to hit her personal body goal and do it while having fun. Here's the thing. A diet or a strategic plan might get you into a smaller sized body, but not having the mindset work to match that strategic plan is going to keep your brain desiring overeating. It's the reason that most diets and most plans don't last, and why I created this special masterclass for you to start feeling really more in control around any food in any food scenario. You can go and grab this training for free over at theunstoppablemombrain.com/desire. Okay, let's get into today's conversation with Master Coach Judith Gaton. Hey, my unstoppable friends. I am so incredibly thrilled to bring on my friend, my peer, and a very, very, very special guest, Master Certified Coach Judith Gaton. She is an attorney turned amazing coach. She's going to tell you what kind of coach she is. I feel like I can't even sum it up in one word. It's like image, fashion, self, identity, high achieving women, basically feeling like bold ass humans. Like, can we just put that into one word? What word would that be, Judith? I don't know.
I'll be here for all of this.
Yeah, all of it. I want you introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you and how you got into what you're doing now, especially because you started out being an attorney. Take it away.
Oh my God, I love it. That intro was fun. I'm like, yes, bold ass humans. I love it for all of us. Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Judith Gaton, and I am an image consultant, personal stylist, and general life coach for high achieving women. So it could have, there's no way to encompass all that I do, I guess. And one quick phrase, I used to just say style coach, but I think that as my friends lovingly coached me, so you'll be privy to some of the behind the scenes. We were all having these giant croissants that were like as big as your face. And we were at this amazing coffee shop in Soho with the morning New Yorkers getting their morning cups of coffee. And my friends were around me lovingly were like, can we tell you something? But whenever your friends, especially if they're coach friends, get around you and they lean in and they're like, can we tell you something? Like,
it's like, we need your permission, Judith. Like, listen, can we ask you a very important question? Yes.
Oh, it was so good. And, they kind of just lovingly coaxed me into the idea that like style coach does not fully encompass all that I do. And that, an image coach or image consultant was a better way to encapsulate all of that. So thus the phrase image consultant, personal stylist, and general life coach. Yes.
Yeah. And I think, a lot of that conversation even stemmed. I mean, first of all, you and I became friends. I don't even remember when we became friends. I think we actually met at an event and then we went to dinner. And I think Brig and Bev, we were at dinner together. And I feel like I just hit it off with you. And then we bonded over Star Trek. We are both Trekkies. We both love a good Star Trek. There we go. And I feel like we just started messaging each other. And I think that the sense that I got from you, and I think even what led to the conversation from style to image was, you use words like gumption, and you talk about something that is a lot more felt sense than just style. Like, I felt like style was one angle, but kind of what you talk about, which is why I even wanted to have you on the podcast, is the whole identity, how women can feel in their clothes. I talk about how women can feel in their bodies, but what you talk about is how do you treat your body? How do you dress her? How do you take care of her? And it kind of felt like it just encompassed so much more. So I'm so glad. So tell us a little bit about how you got to becoming a coach that talks about this topic, why it's even relevant for high achievers, especially because you didn't start out doing this at all. This is like not your career or your profession.
No, and it's funny because I actually went to undergrad to be a fashion designer, and then that was hard, air quotes, and then decided to become a lawyer because that would be, again, air quotes, easier, which is insane in retrospect. And I was a very good lawyer. I was a litigator. I did complex litigation throughout my career, since as a baby attorney all the way through when I decided to stop practicing. And what I realized along the way was I still had a love for style, like a huge love for style, huge love for fashion. And I had a tremendous love for spending time with really incredibly smart women. Like those are my people. I think it's part of what you and I attracted us to each other. I was like, oh, I like your face and you're smart. Yeah. Let's go. Right. So yeah, there's something very incredible about being around other, smart cookies, for lack of a better way of putting it. And the more time I spent with really smart women who were at the top levels of their career, doing incredible things in the world, whether they were doctors or they're lawyers, accountants, nurses, like all of the really incredible women in my world, I realized that there was this commonality of operating like you were a body that was divorced from your top half. So it's kind of funny, like you're this floating head and everything's happening in your mind and in your brain. You're really cerebral and you're thinking about things and you're problem solving, or you're creating really cool shit. And then it's like the bottom half of you is sort of like floating around, like absent from you somewhere. And I was like, those are connected. And then it was kind of trying to get women to grasp the idea that they are not just a floating head. They are a whole human body. They're a fully fledged, together one body. And how do we get them back to that idea, that understanding that there's only one of them? There's not the compartmentalized versions of them. There's the mom them, and then there's the professional them, and then there's the spouse, and then the lover, and then the friend, and sometimes daughter. No, there's one of them, only one, uniquely, amazingly one of them. And if we could get her to stop compartmentalizing and show up fully as herself, the size of her ass, the shape of her breast, all of her, all the parts of her, how much more powerfully could she show up to do whatever her work is?
Right.
And that has sort of been the heart center of what I do.
And I think this actually might have even spearheaded some of our first conversations, because I have been that person, as we've talked about kind of offline, I've been that person who has been really in my head, like really focused on my creativity, what I want to put out in the world. The quality of my work has been a huge one. Especially as an OBGYN physician, like in my physician life, it was like all focused on productivity and like results focused. And I think that for a really long time, I kept thinking, particularly when I was not at the size that I wanted to be, that I would just take care of it later. I had a lot of these like later thoughts, like, let me first be productive. Let me first, do good work. Let me first check things off my list. Let me first take care of my patients and, my family and the workplace. And then kind of like when I've taken care of all of those things, then maybe I can take care of myself. And that meant obviously, of course, like my efforts to feel good in my body physically, but like the way that I dressed myself felt like such an afterthought. It felt like, I can get on by. I can scrap on by for now. And because it like, I don't see how it really matters. Like it did matter, but I'm like, maybe it doesn't really matter. So what do you say to that? Because I feel like this is kind of one of the first conversations that you and I probably ever had.
Yeah. And but if we think, like, we back up, right? Like, of course you were thinking that, like most really intelligent, smart women were told, well, just wait. Just go be smart. Get the pieces of paper, earn your degrees, get the good career, make a lot of money. Like, then you can worry about that other stuff. Like the other stuff that the other girls worry about. But you special snowflake smart cookie, you just worry about your brain. You go be smart. And we're kind of socialized that way. If you're a really smart woman, like that other stuff, right? We're relegating it to stuff is unimportant. Just go be smart, and that will speak for itself. Your accomplishments will speak for themselves, which is true to a certain point. But then a lot of you high achievers, extremely successful women, eventually you reach a point in your career, your professional life where other humans have to see you.
Mm-hmm.
You will be leading teams. You will be in charge of other folks. You'll be managing them. You'll be mentoring them. You'll be doing rounds with them. You'll be teaching them. You're heads of committees, galas. Oh my God, the doctors, you love to gala. It's like a whole fucking thing, right? So like eventually, love, we will need to see you. You'll reach such a height in your level of success that you will be seen by other folks. And we can't have you just operating in your own head, because the world really needs the gift that is you, the way you think, the way you approach things, your experience, your skills, your knowledge, all of it. And we can't reach that level if literally you are not equipped with what you're wearing to show up in those spaces. And what I see a lot of times is when my clients come to me, they've waited till the very last minute because they have an important thing coming up, right? So they're going to chair committee and their ass is on fire when they're shopping because like, but it's next week. I'm like, but you knew about this 6 months ago. So sorry, like we could do so much, love, right? Or they're speaking on stages, or they're going in front of literally the World Health Organization to talk about vaccines, or like any number of things. And what happens is it detracts from the important work you have to do if you're actually worried about your clothes, because suddenly the clothes became very important.
Right. I think like part of the reason, because I've definitely done that. I can think, and even as you're talking, I'm like replaying scenes in my mind of events where I left the outfits, with plural, because there might have been like more than one for an event, needed to the last minute. And I know that the thought that I had was, I don't have time for that because I need to spend this time on quote unquote important things, which is like the presentation itself or the quality of like, the actual work that I'm going to be doing. So I used to tell myself, number one, like, I don't have time for this. I'll get to it later. Or I think the subconscious thought was like, it's not as important as these other things. So what I'm hearing you say is that kind of to be a beacon where you can get out the message you want to get out and show up and, let that important work translate to the people around you, whether it's your local community or your team or your organization, dressing in a way that lets you feel more like you in your most powerful way. It's almost like it lets you amplify your message. That's kind of what I'm hearing you say. Tell me if that sounds true.
Yeah, no, exactly. And this is why this matters. If we're not dressing in a way where we feel confident, where we feel comfortable, then we end up being distraction and we're detracting from our own message. And that to me, for so many smart women, it would just be such a travesty. You have so many you do have important work to do. You do have important things to say. Yes, the work you do is literally more important than whether or not your sweater is red or blue. Fuck yes, I'm all in on this. Until it becomes such a distraction for you because you're not prepared. You don't have what you need on hand to go deliver your message. You don't have what you need on hand to feel confident when you walk in your room. So now, instead of focused on the words you're supposed to speak, I actually had someone 2 weeks ago. She's in charge of a very large organization of a particular type of therapists. I will just say it. And literally all she could think about before delivering this speech to thousands of people was, oh shit, I have nothing to wear. Right. Then we have a problem, right? Because like you have some important thing to deliver and now you're distracted by your clothes. Now it's detracting from the time you would have spent prepping for your speech, worrying about what you're going to wear. So yeah, suddenly it did become really important. It always mattered. Like enclosed cognition is a real thing. You can go look up tons of studies on it. How we perceive other humans happens in nanoseconds, right? Human heuristics are always at play. Our brains are wired to short circuit information in nanoseconds, and then we determine what we think and feel about this person. So as much as I'd like to say, oh, it doesn't matter, that's not the human reality in which we live. It actually really does matter. And because your work is so important in the world, it is important that we dress you appropriately to deliver whatever your message is.
Right. Okay. So I have so many thoughts on this. Okay. So
tell me all the things.
Let's Judith, we need to unravel a couple of things. So the first one, and this is again, another one you and I have talked about offline. I am a huge creature of comfort. Like I love to feel comfortable and cozy. I want the cozy things. And I often have associated like really nice clothes or like looking really put together with this idea of being uncomfortable. I don't even know where I came up with that. It's just something I've probably held for many, many years in my attempt to be like, Priyanka, you're fine. Like, I'm like, we want to be comfortable. And so what do you think about that? Because I will choose comfort over fashion any day. And I don't know whether, and this is maybe what part of the reason I loved living in scrubs. I was like, listen, I can basically wear pajamas to the hospital. I can deliver babies in this thing. This is so lovely, because I felt comfortable in those clothes rather than having to put on, it's not put on a show, but like it feels almost like putting on a show. So what would you say to someone that has that thought? Like they really want comfort. Comfort is so important to them because it makes me feel, it's like, oh, I get to kind of be me. That's the thought. It's like, I get to be more me when I feel really comfortable in what I'm wearing. So my objection has always been like, that fashionable stuff is just not comfortable.
Oh, it's not. I wouldn't want to wear
okay. Okay. So yeah, let's talk about it.
Right. So like one of my favorite shows of the runway this year was like these latex upside down dresses that were like kind of like snap-on clothes. I don't want to walk around like that. Like, so I think it's important to make the distinction between style and fashion.
Okay.
So I like to describe it as like fashion is a circus parade that we get to enjoy going by, and we get to kind of laugh and giggle at the feathers and the sequins and the elephants and the hoopla of it all. We get to enjoy it as spectators.
Okay.
It's separate and apart from style. Style is personal, and style is our thoughts and our feelings about ourselves outwardly reflected in what we choose to put on our bodies. So that could be good and that could be bad, depending on how you're thinking and feeling about yourself. Here's where I think is kind of interesting, and you touched on something that I definitely want to go back to, is like, I feel like I'm putting on a show, or kind of like, I feel like I'm dressing up like someone else.
Yeah.
And that's typically because we're not working with clothing that actually is what you're thinking and feeling in that moment. We're not planning for the whole human. We're just trying to slap a cute outfit on you, send you off into the world. And that's not how actual personal style works. We need to know how you think about yourself. How do you feel about yourself? How do you live your actual lifestyle? What are your actual body shape requirements? Do you have any sensory issues for clothing? Do you know how many women I serve? I have a pet peeve, like, who have actual sensory issues. Like, because either they're on the spectrum, they're maybe a little neurospicy, or they just don't like clothing feeling a particular way, but their whole lives they were told, sit still. Well, I'm really itchy, mom. Doesn't matter. Sit still. Don't ruin your nice clothes. Right? Like, our beauty is pain. We're all supposed to be slightly uncomfortable in our clothing. And that's a socialization that I think we could all just do away with. We are not required to be uncomfortable in our clothing in order to look stylish. Gone are the years of corsets where women are literally fainting because they can't breathe. They're not getting enough oxygen. Like, we could all do away with that collectively. Let's not bring it back in some weird form or fashion with modern day clothing. It's just not required.
So I think so what I'm hearing you say is like that I probably have really kind of crossed the difference between fashion and like being trendy and, kind of like the fun things that you were talking about versus really having a sense of what my style is based on what I think of myself. Like, what is the way that I want to think about myself is one angle. And then the other one is like, what is the image that I want to be portraying in my community, in my organization, in my business? And I think that I wonder whether I'm guessing you have really helped clients think about how they create their sense of style. Like, I was someone, right, for so many years, medical school, it was like, basically, I don't even know what I wore. Like, it was like pajamas, but like reasonable looking pajamas, like all day long. And then in residency, it was scrubs, right? Every single day. And then definitely in attending life, I remember actually after I graduated residency, I'm like, oh, I'm going to go to get some nice clothes. I went to J. Crew. I don't know. What do you think about J. Crew? I went to J. Crew. I got some really cute dresses. Like, I wore heels. I mean, I was like, who am I? I felt so proud of myself as an attending. And then that lasted maybe a month, 2 months or something. And it was just, I think, not comfortable for me to see patients in that style. So I went back to wearing basically scrubs all the time. So I'm curious, like, for someone that doesn't know their sense of style, or they've maybe been like me, like wearing scrubs all the time, how do they start to discover where to start creating their sense of style?
Okay. So this is one of my favorite things I do with clients. And I tell my clients every week, I'm like, this is my favorite. And I'm like, but everything's going to be my favorite. And they just kind of laugh. So we actually just did style statements with a current group of clients that we have. And I don't like to use a typical paradigm. So typically what would happen if you tricked selecting your style, you would take some really lame quiz and they would tell you if you were classic or bohemian or whatever the fuck people were coming up with, which I have thoughts about clearly. So I like to use a totally different system where we use a series of questions to help elicit from the client, like what they're currently wearing, how they feel about themselves, what their favorite items were, and work them through this process. And then it's incredible what they say to me about the thoughts and adjectives that they have for themselves. So by way of example, I have a client right now, her style statement is polished, vibrant, and a little bit extra. And she works for a big government agency. She oversees a lot of people. And if you met her, it would make so much sense. You'd be like, oh my gosh, yes. And then I have another client who's creative, creatively chill as fuck. Right. But if you met her and you knew her personality, this would just make so much sense. She's also fucking hilarious. She cracks me up every time. Sometimes she makes me laugh. I have another client who it's chipper and classic. And if you met her, that would make so much sense. So there is a process by which we can elicit from your brain, your thoughts about yourself, and have it be, making sure that comfort is the minimum requirement. So I actually don't allow my clients to include comfortable in their style statements because we all make a pact with each other that their clothing will be comfortable from here on out, period, end of story. If it's not comfortable, it doesn't make it into their closet.
Right. Like it doesn't need to be a special word as a part of your style because everything should feel
I was about
to be like, Judith, what do you mean comfortable can't be one of my words? That's like one of my main words.
Like, what are you talking about? But like, that's now the minimum baseline requirement. Right. All of your clothing should be comfortable on your body or you don't wear it.
Okay. So you're basically saying that like the way that someone might start even identifying what their sense of style is these words that just paints a picture of who they are. And okay, so this is a little bit of a deviation, but I felt like for me, when I was at my personal heaviest, I didn't like the words that I would have chosen for myself. And I mean, this is like, I think a big thing that a lot of women are dealing with. They think, and I know I did, is when I lose the weight or when I like reach my personal body goal, then I will know my identity. Then I will be able to, have that dream style. Then I can even think about myself in a way that feels powerful. I know that was me for so long. So what would you say to someone like that? That's like, I just am not at the weight that I want to be. And so like, it's one of these shoulder shrugs.
Yeah. I call it turtling. It's like, right. I spoke to someone recently. I was at someone else's live event and she was really resistant. She's like, yeah, body love, whatever. And I was like, wow, you got a lot of feelings. She goes, what? I don't want to be this weight. I don't want to be in this body. So body positivity doesn't do anything for me. And I was like, I didn't even suggest you be positive about your body. This is so interesting. But I recognized what was going on for her, which is, I think, similar to what your clients probably struggle with is, if I accept my body as it is right now, and I decide I'm going to dress the body I have now, I'm going to even try to love, or even let's just say like, not hate the body I have right now, then it's admitting defeat, it's admitting failure, and I will be stuck in this body at this weight for forever. And to some of our clients who have struggled with their weight their whole lives, that's like the worst fucking thing we could ever try to invite them into. Like they can't even fathom it. So a great way to kind of, and this is you, dear listener, I say that to you to tell you, I love you. I see you. I get it. And I'm not going to try and sell you on body love because I actually don't even think we have to go there. But it's important to ask yourself this question and then to mull it over. If I lost the weight and I got to the ideal size, shape, weight, whatever the hell it is I want, right? You get to choose whatever it is you want. What would you then allow yourself to believe is true? What would you then allow yourself to think about yourself? What would you allow yourself to call yourself? What would you allow yourself to say about you? Because that gives us a window into really probably what your style already is, if you accepted that could be true in this current body. Now, you may not be there yet, but at least an opening, a window into how you might think about this is to imagine if all these things that you hope to be true were true, then what would you give yourself the pleasure and allowance of thinking about yourself? And then we can play from there.
I think as you're sharing that, because it feels like it really touches home for me. When I was at my heaviest, I think I I was very confident. I was like I was a confident person in the workplace and, at home, but I was not confident about my body. I was not confident around my body. I didn't feel like in control of it. I didn't feel good about it. And I think the thought I used to have is when I lose the weight, when I lose all the weight that I want to lose, then I will get to feel confident about myself. That's what I would feel confident about myself. So I felt really confident about my skills. At my heaviest, I felt confident about my skills. I felt confident about my brain. But then I will feel confident about myself. That's what I told myself. And I think for so long, when I was like basically living, Judith, I don't even know if I told you this, but I got clothes at Target for a long time, which is fine. Target has some like really cute things, by the way. Mm-hmm. But I kept those clothes, that size clothing that I was wearing at my heaviest, even as I lost a little over like 60 pounds. I didn't just like get rid of that. I didn't get rid of it. I was like, I'm not there yet. 10 pounds down, 20 pounds down, 30 pounds down. Every decade of weight that I lost, it was never enough for me to be like, I'm still wearing now at this point, I'm wearing loose clothing. By the way, it's probably years old. It's like tattered. And that is how I would dress myself at home. Because I'm like, I'm not there yet. So like, why go shopping? Why take the time? Why spend the money on clothes? Like, I'm not even there yet. So like, why bother? And it's like, now as I'm even sharing this with you, I'm almost getting a little choked up because it's like, how was I treating myself along the way to like, I don't even know what to say. It's bananas. I don't know. You take it away because I might just start crying on the podcast. I know.
It's like, this is how we're socialized, right? We have goal clothing. What are your non-food rewards going to be for your weight loss? And it's like, does that actually work for you? Like I had a client, she would hang this outfit and it was over a decade of hanging this outfit in her closet. It was too small for her. Mm-hmm. And it was her goal outfit. And I was like, how do you feel when you walk into your closet and you see your goal outfit? She's like, I feel terrible.
Right.
Like, so every morning you start out your day feeling terrible. And then you go make your food choices from feeling terrible. Right. And you expected what to happen on your weight loss? She was like, oh, I didn't even realize I was doing that. Like goal underwear, goal lingerie, I've heard the goal bras, the goal whatever.
Yeah.
So it's funny because we tell ourselves, if you do this thing that you find tremendously difficult and really hard to do, instead of that being the reward in and of itself, I'm going to tie it to this other thing that you have a really hard time with. And I'm only going to allow you to do this other really hard thing when you've done this first really hard thing. And it's right. Like, oh, let's talk about how humans are motivated. That is not how we are motivated, not even close.
Right.
So part of what I like to tell my clients is we have to divorce these ideas from each other. If you want to go on a weight loss journey, you want to go on a gain weight journey, you want to go on a muscle journey, you want booty gains, you want to slim down, whatever it is you want to do to your body. Let's just separate that from how we care for it, how we dress it, how we lotion it, how we hydrate it, because those are two separate things. We've conflated them, and that's how the media gets us to buy a lot of stuff and to buy into certain ideas and to spend a lot of money on things we don't need, is to tangle these ideas.
Right.
When you lose weight, you can get the goal bikini. When you lose weight, you'll be allowed to go on vacation. Or how about we live our life, we go on vacation, we wear bikinis if we fucking want to, and we can also be on a weight loss journey. Right. It's not an if, then, or an either or. Yeah. It's a yes, and also this other thing.
Yeah. I think for me, there's like so many, there's a few reasons. I think one is what you said at the beginning, the body love, body acceptance thing. That's something that I've coached my clients on. And it's like almost this, not unfathomable, but almost like this, those like the emoji, the brain exploding emoji. It's like that moment of like, wait a second, I didn't realize that I didn't have to hate where I was right now to hit my personal body goal. Right. Like just understanding that you may not love where you are right now. And I totally get it. But like, what if you didn't have to hate where you were right now to hit your goal? I think so many high achievers think that they'll become complacent. That's what it is. Like, if I don't hate where I am right now, and I think that's like our way of like muscling ourselves to take action, then I'm just going to become complacent and just like not care. And that's just not the high achiever way. Like, listen, if you're a high achiever listening to this, there's no such thing as you not caring. I mean, you care, you just don't have to beat yourself with a stick. That's been my experience. The second piece that you're talking about is what hit home for me is I used to think that when I hit my goal weight, that's when I'll deserve it. That's when I'll deserve to spend money and time, and care is the big one. And care on myself is when I've proven to myself that I'm worth it. And the way that I would prove it to myself is by taking myself seriously. I mean, this sounds all like, if you wrote this down, it sounds reasonable on paper, but as I'm saying it out loud, I'm like, oh my gosh, Priyanka, really? It's like, when I've taken care of myself, when I've proven to myself that I can, hit this goal, then I will deserve to spend the time, the effort, the money on dressing myself well. And I mean, even to this day, I don't love shopping. I mean, I tell you this all the time, like, Judith, I think I even posted this on Instagram. I'm like, okay, I moved, I have to throw all these clothes, but I'm having a hard time getting rid of some of these Target tattered clothes. And you sent me a message like, Priyanka, your skin deserves more than this. It's the deserving piece for me. I'm curious what you think about that.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of messy, right? When we use the word like deserving or worth or value, because if you don't feel like you're good enough ever, those words aren't going to be helpful to you. They're just going to make you feel worse. So I kind of like to put it in terms of like, you are a human being, full stop. That's the only thing we need to know about you. Like, we don't have to get you to believe in your worth or your value or that you're deserving, because most high achievers are never going to believe that about themselves. It's like an uphill battle that we don't have to wage. Like, you are a human. Okay, human, you deserve to have nice things sitting close to your body. Like, whatever is going to be closest to your heart and your skin, like, surely we could have nice things. Full stop. Just because you're a human, just because you're a being on the earth walking around. Yeah. That's it. That's all we need to know about you. But that's even a hard sell. So I think kind of the way to ease into this is to take the idea of loving your body off the table completely.
Yeah. And just like not hating where you're at.
Like,
I think that's like
not to hate it.
Yeah. It's just, I just find, and whenever I reflect back on those times where I did used to feel like that, I think I also feel this like a mix of gratitude that I even went on the journey. Like, even the fact that you and I are sitting here, if I had to listen, a few years ago, if I ever could have flashed forward, like, you're going to be, first of all, a coach, you're going to be talking with a style and image expert, and you're going to care about this, I would have laughed, or I would have been like, I don't understand how that's even possible. Like, what a leap. But I'm so grateful that I came, first of all, that I met you and that I even came on this journey, that I'm even like having this conversation, because it's bringing up so much, like in how many ways, I was so curious in how many ways high achievers are holding themselves back because we are like prescribing to certain rules on what we are allowed to do, what we have to do first before we're allowed to care for ourselves and the image that we put out there. So if you could just think about like some of the practical tips that you would give someone that feels kind of like a novice, they're like, okay, I can see why this might matter. I can see how I maybe don't have to wait until I hit my goal weight or until I feel fully comfortable in my body. Where should somebody start just like dipping their toe in and getting started?
Personally, I think your underwear drawer.
I know. Okay. You always talk about the pants. Yeah. You always talk about the underwear. Let's go there.
Yeah. And anybody if any of your listeners enter my role, I will be talking about panties. I talk about underwear.
Yes. I know.
But I think it's the easiest point of entry for high achievers who think like we were thinking back in the day, right? Like, this is not important. I have more important things to worry about. I don't want to spend money on this right now. I have to lose weight first. I have to get this degree first. Then I'm allowed to think about these things. Or then next thing is, well, I have to buy my house first. And then and fill in the blank. Because we've all been given this timetable on our lives about the progression of things and when we were supposed to do things by and how we were supposed to do them. So then we get to, mid 30s and we realize there's no more timetable and we have the rest of our lives to make it up and we're a little lost. So
I mean, that's enter Priyanka. That's where I was like, Judith, like, I'm like messaging like, wait, so style, wait, what are we talking about? can we just bypass this? I actually realized for a long time, and I'm curious if anyone listening to this has ever felt like this will definitely apply to both weight loss and with style. I told myself for so long, when this part of my life is over, then I will pay attention to myself. So medical school, when med school is done, then I will focus on my body. When residency is done, when attending life is done, when my kids are just a little bit older. And I came to the point, I'm in my late 30s at this point, tipping the scale at the heaviest I'd ever been. I'm like, wait a second, this is supposed to be the good part of my life. I've worked really hard for so many years. And is this it? I'm like looking around, like, is this meant to be the highlight? Because it's not feeling like the highlight. And it is a wake-up call. Like, what if we didn't have to keep waiting for our life to get easier or to get better, to care for ourselves, to invest in ourselves? I wonder what are the small little ways we could just start now. So how does somebody start now with their underwear?
Yeah. So I think the underwear is easy because no one has to know. You're not going to spend a ton of, unless you absolutely want to, and then you do you, boo, because there's some beautiful underwear out there in the world. But like, it's an easy point of entry to just start to pay attention. And so here's what I mean by paying attention. We need to pay attention to the fit of your clothing, right? So if we just start with your underwear, we start with your panties, we start with your bras, like, do they fit you? Are they physically comfortable on your body? If not, then we just got to figure out what your size is, which allows us to pay attention to what your body's currently doing. We get to pay attention to any sensory things that are annoying you. Do you hate tags? I have some clients who like everything has to be tagless because they will be driven mad. I have some clients who they don't like wires on their bras. So we've had to come up with like, let's find out about you. It's a great way to learn, like, physically what you don't like and physically what you do like, what you would prefer. Maybe you can't wear anything but cotton because lady part issues. So some of our, clients they have to wear cotton undies. Like, we're going to learn a lot about you by just doing a little bit of paying attention with, do my underwear fit? Do I have any notable annoyances that I've been ignoring that I could start to pay attention to? And then we could layer on things like bright colors and prints and patterns and textures. We could get more playful and like do something really fun if you want to. But even just at its heart, if we even upgrade things that are not comfortable to something that is physically comfortable, we've learned a lot about you in the process. We've started to pay attention to you in the process. You start to develop a relationship with yourself in the process. And then we can do something else. We can start to talk about shirts or pants or shoes. You know how many people have shoe issues? It's incredible, right? Like, we could start small, start to build that rapport with you, right? You could start to date yourself a little bit.
Right.
And then we can move on from there. And often my clients do, they start with their underwear drawer, they move to their closets, and then the rest of their house, their jobs, relationships, like everything gets a makeover. But let's just start with your undies.
Start small. I feel like this is speaking to the high achiever who is very, I know this is definitely, ask me how I know, because it's me. It's like very all or nothing. Like, oh, if I'm going on this journey, I have to like do all of it at once. I have that tendency, like I want to like do the whole thing, but sometimes that can also create a lot of overwhelm, which is then what feeds the whole, like, I don't have time to do this whole big overhaul. And I think what you're saying kind of maybe can give us all permission to like, let it be a small tweak first. Like, let it just be one small thing and like, let it be one step at a time. Like, let it be slow to actually like see traction. I feel like this is like exactly what we talk about in weight loss. Like, you don't have to throw spaghetti at the wall and change every single part of what you're doing. Like, what if one small tweak is just where you start feeling really good. You start feeling better, you start to get to know yourself, and then you start layering things on, which I think is probably so much more fun and creates a lot more traction.
Oh, I think it takes a lot more traction. And I'll tell you, I've had clients, I remember in particular, we're doing closet clean out and she's like, I'm going to do all of it this weekend. And I was like, I really recommend you don't. So let's like clean up the mess we made together. And then let's make a plan for like, 15-minute increments over the next week. You're totally going to get it done. I promise you. But like, I could see, right? She had that look in her eye, the high achiever look, right?
I'm like, yeah.
Right? It's in the air, you can't see us. And we're like, right? The little thing. So I was like, oh shit, she's ramping up. I could just feel it. She's not going to listen to me. So I was like, you get to do you always, but this is my recommendation. So we meet a week later. She's like, oh my God, so overwhelmed. I was like, you made a huge mess, didn't you? She's like, oh my God, can I show you? So she tore apart her guest room. There was like, literally a mountain of clothing on her guest bed. And she's like, I should have listened to you. I was like, actually, this is the best thing that could have happened. Because I need you to see, like, this was not helpful to you. And I understand the desire to like go all in. And that's what movie montages are, right? Like movie makeover montages are like huge messes, right? We see Claire in her beautiful closet, and then later she's trying all those outfits for her date, or, you know, Pretty Woman, except for we don't ever see her put shit back because they're salespeople, right? Like messes are made. This is part of the process, but like we have to plan for that because you're a real human. So dear friend, like, don't do that to yourselves. Please heed our recommendation.
Yeah.
Go small, go slow, clean up after yourself as you go along. You have important shit to worry about rather than a giant pile of clothing on your
Oh my God. I can totally imagine myself doing that. And then afterwards just being like, I need a break from this. And like, open up the Netflix, get the bottle of wine, like, where are my chips? Like, I need a break from the break. Like, I need a break from the mess. Like, I mean, it's not a surprise. Okay. One last thing I want to talk about. I know, like, I feel we can keep this conversation going forever.
Totally.
One last topic. And I feel like this is such an important point that I think high achievers we get a touch of this, is sometimes because we have so many things that we love and care about. We really care about impact at work. We care about our family, our kids, so many things in our community and really in the world, that the idea of spending either money or time or effort on just us, whether it's body goal or with clothing, feels indulgent or frivolous. And I the sense I get sometimes, like, we feel a little guilty. So what would you say to someone who really does have this lion's heart of like wanting to create so much for everyone around them, especially kids and work, and because of that, they feel guilty at taking time away, or effort away, or money away for themselves? What would you say to someone like that?
A few things. I'm like, my brain's like, so let me slow my brain train down a little bit. I think you will be less effective in those roles if you're not taking care of yourself. So I understand the heart's desire to serve everyone, whether it's your work colleagues, the work you do in the world, your patients, your clients, your children, your chosen family, if you're kid-free, right? Like, I get it. I see your heart. I love it. And I also think you'll be less effective in any of those roles if you are not taking care of yourself. You'll be less of, and this is a prime example. I had a client, she had a huge board meeting and she had this really important idea she was putting forward that was going to be implemented organization wide. And she was putting together this proposal for this process to be implemented that was proven within her own department. And she said to me, I don't want to hide this time. I don't want to hide this time. And it's like, I could feel her passion. She's like, it's imperative that we implement this process. It will save money. It will save lives. Like, I was like, girl, I'm already sold. Let's do the process.
Let's go. Yeah.
I don't really fully understand your job, but like, let's do this. Right.
Yeah.
I was like, you don't have to sell me on the process. You have to sell them. So why are you hiding? She's like, I was so embarrassed last time I stood up because I was then suddenly like acutely aware that like my clothes weren't really great. She's like, my shirt really didn't fit, it kind of gaped. So then I had to hold my body a certain way. And I was just really uncomfortable. And like, please, I don't want to do that this time. I want to go and be able to like flail my arms, show them all of the evidence and like the statistics and the research that backs up the process. I was like, okay. I was like, that's what we want. So, right. She's extremely less effective if she's like suddenly in the middle of that, like, oh shit, this outfit's not working. And I've had the same experience. I wore Spanx that were too tight, too court ones, in the middle of this amazing oral argument. And I could feel my fat roll like escape the Spanx. And I'm sure you all know that sensation.
Oh yeah.
It's like that blip, 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 right? Yeah. And I was like, right now, I have to like put my hand in my pants and pull it up and find a way to do this strategically. Like, it's a distraction. And the same is true for like, if you're doing the mom pickup line. And it's lonely when you're a really smart cookie and you're in your mid 30s plus to make friends is hard. And then you go looking kind of cray to the mom pickup line or the event with the kiddos and you're embarrassed and you want to shrink and hide. You're less effective in that role. And then that seems kind of crass. Like, oh, should it really be all about our looks? I wish that wasn't the case. But I'm sorry, dear heart. And I see your heart. But that is part of being a human, is we have to show up with clothing on to do the things that we were meant to do in this world. So if you want to be effective in all of those roles, because you have a heart for service, you have a heart to achieve and be successful, let's dress you for the different roles that you play comfortably, stylishly as you define it. And then let's see like how distraction free and ready and able you are to really be seen and show up.
I love that. I love that. And I think that this is something that I will shout from the rooftops, especially because I think you and I both have experienced the impact of investing in yourself with coaching, especially. But when you as a human are really taken care of, when you're given some care and you are seen and heard and your brain is leveled up in how you think of you, I feel like we just show up so much more powerfully as moms or in the workplace or in your family and in every corner and crevice of your life. But somehow I know that for me before coaching, I just didn't see that. I didn't know that it was a thing. I didn't know it was a thing. I was like, when I get to myself, I'll get to myself. All these other things matter more. And I think what you and I have experienced, I mean, we've both become coaches for a reason, right? And left really like awesome careers is because of the impact of really focusing on ourselves too, so we can show up more powerfully the way we want. So thank you, Judith, for having this conversation. I feel like we could have kept going. I had all these questions, by the way. I like reached out to some of my friends are serious fans of yours. And I was like, I'm going to have Judith on the podcast. What questions am I going to ask her? I have like a whole list of questions. I didn't even get to my questions because we just started chit-chatting.
We'll do a part two.
We should totally do a part two. I love it because there's so much more. And friends, if you're listening to this, if you loved something about this episode, come and find us on Instagram, tag us, tell us your takeaways, tell us what you're loving. Judith, share how people can find you on Instagram, on your podcast online, and yeah, tell us how we can learn more about you.
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram at Judith Gaton. So JUDITHGATON. And if you do an undies drawer clean out and you want to send me a snapshot of the pile and tag me, please do. I'm delighted when I get those, by the way. And if you want to kind of come into my world and get some help along the way, you can listen to the Style Masterclass podcast.
I love it, Judith. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. For sure going to have you back. I hope you guys all today enjoyed the episode. Bye. I absolutely loved today's conversation, and I'm so grateful that Judith came on to talk about style and image for the high achieving woman. If you loved it, tag us over at Instagram. I am the Unstoppable Mom Brain, and Judith is at Judith Gaton, and tell us what you loved about the episode and what your takeaways were. If you're anything like me, you might have had some thoughts like, it doesn't matter right now. I'm not at my goal weight yet. It might feel frivolous to spend time, money, or effort on how I dress myself, or I need to hit my goal weight to dress myself in a way that helps me feel the most powerful. But I think today's conversation really sheds some light on the fact that how we treat ourselves, how we treat our bodies, and how we dress ourselves does in fact matter right now. With that in mind, I created an on-demand high-level training for the high-achieving working mom so that you too can feel calm, in control, and powerful in any food scenario, especially during the holidays. You can grab it for free over at theunstoppablemombrain.com/desire. It's such a good training. I really hope you enjoy it, and I hope you have an amazing week. I'll see you guys in your email inbox. Bye.